Hi folks, how are you doing? Well, in the 6th round of Norway Chess 2015 we saw a really fascinating game between Vishwanathan Anand, the former world champion, with white pieces, and MVL, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, with black. It was really full of beautiful complications, so I think you don't want to miss this one. Anand plays 1e4 as he's been doing in this tournament, and we saw, as it was expected, the Najdorf variation of the Sicilian. This is the main defense for MVL against 1e4, and Anand plays 6h3, the trendy line against the Najdorf. A really nice variation actually, with lots of interesting ideas. Basically, white wants to play g4, grab space on the king side, put the bishop on g2, bishop on e3, and start from there, see what you can get. Sometimes you go for a kingside attack, sometimes white goes tries to exploit the weakness of the d5 square, etc. Okay, MVL has faced this more than once, of course. This line is not a novelty. He plays e6 in this case. A couple of days ago he played pawn to h5, the very principled idea against Caruana a couple of rounds ago in this same tournament, stopping the idea g4 by white. This time he went e6, another main line here. White goes g4, and here d5 is a move, striking back in the center. Knight fd7 is another possibility, which well, the knight will later probably go to e5 or c5, etc., with some theory there, of course. But h6 was played by MVL, another move here, possible move. Bishop g2, knight c6. We see some normal developing moves now. Bishop e7, f4. Knight finally goes to d7. White castles. Couple of knights are exchanged here. There is a little subtle difference between taking with the queen and the bishop, which was explained by Jan Gustafsson during the live stream of the game, which I find interesting. White, he said, usually prefers to take with the queen here, as after, say, e5, possible move, he can choose where to put the queen. The queen could go to d2 when there's but if white takes with the bishop after, say, e5, bishop back, we take bishop, knight e5, the queen is still on d2. You don't have it, say, on d2, it's still on d1, so you win like half a tempo there by taking with the queen. By the way, I mean, there is a very important game to understand this one. There is a game which was used as a reference by both MVL and Anand, of course, during all the commentating after the game, which is the game between David Navara and Alexander Grischuk. It was played in the Tromsø Olympiad last summer, like a year ago. You can see here the link to the game, to my video for that game, which was quite spectacular again. There Grischuk was had to face a very similar attack like MVL has to do in this game, and that game was won by David Navara in a very beautiful style, so go ahead and see that game if you want to. So yeah, he after queen takes d4, black castles, queen to d2, rook b8, very normal moves. Now we want to play b5, the knight goes to e2 to be relocated to g3, and it's pretty obvious that if white wants to do something, it has to be a kingside attack. I mean, Anand is piling up pieces, and well, black just will have to find a way to bear the storm there. b5 is played, rook a d1, queen c7, just like this, and f5. Anand starts to push his kingside pawns, and here the very interesting part of the game starts, with lots of sacrifices and tactics to come, so be sure you don't miss this. Maxime plays knight f6, knight to g3, bishop to b7, and the preparatory king h1 was played here. Well, the idea, you may have already guessed, is to sacrifice here on h6, as David Navarra did in the game I just mentioned, and well, win by just a kingside attack, by a mating attack with pushing his pawns. King h1 is a preparatory move which is needed in this case, very precisely played by Anand, as taking immediately is not that good, because black has actually some defense in this line. d5, this is the normal, the usual reaction to this attack, to this kingside attack, attacking right now the knight on g3. All this we're gonna see on the main line, but slightly different. And if g5, queen takes g3, rook d3, just as will happen in the game, but with the king on h1. Black here has the additional and very nice defense with bishop c5 check. That this is what black won't have in the game. King h1 and bishop e3, pinning this pawn. Now you cannot take or advance, as the queen would be hanging, and if rook takes, queen takes, well, you just cannot take on f6, as the queen, as always, is hanging on h6. So all this defense was based on the presence of white king on h1, allowing this bishop c5 check, and later bishop e3 move, pinning the pawn on g5. There we see the first amazing variation out of the game. So to avoid all this, very precisely, Vishy Anand plays king to h1. Maxime plays rook b to d8. Probably missing, I mean, not sure what he miss, but he probably should have gone something like king h7, which was suggested by Giri and Aronian, which were on the press conference commentating their own game during when this was all happening on Anand-MVL board. Also there was this possibility of playing d5 here, where Anand told he had this idea, e5, sacrificing temporarily pawn, but of course queen takes, bishop f4, that's a skewer, attacking both the queen and the rook on the dark square diagonal. Queen takes b2, Anand had all this calculated, all this in mind, and he told, well, there are, after queen e3 attacking here, there is more than one way of winning this. There is queen a7 ideas, etc. So, well, after rook b d8, there it goes. It's time for sacrifice. Very nice idea. G takes and queen takes h6. d5. This strikes in the center, and of course we're attacking with the queen, the knight, which is hanging on g3. But Anand plays g5 confidently. It is funny to see the engine giving here -3, winning position for black right after this move, g5. Then after some seconds it gives it like equal, and realizes just 10 or 15 seconds later that white is absolutely crushing. So it's really funny to see the engine not getting what's going on instantly, as it usually happens. This is very complicated and you have to give it some seconds to think. Well, queen takes g3 has to be played. There is nothing else going on here, and the key move here, as we saw in a previous variation where the king was still on g1 and black has had defense, is this rook d3 attacking the queen, winning a tempi here, while white's kingside mating attack is still going on. Well, a couple of options here. MVL played knight h5 in the game, which is going eventually to lead to a crushing victory for white. So let's see a couple of interesting alternatives. Once again, very nice and fascinating positions here, some interesting variations. Knight takes e4 was probably a key variation here. What's going on if we take? Well, there's a couple of moves here. Which is still winning is the move f6, although black takes g5 back and the queens are exchanged. we take e7, fork both rooks. We're going to take one of them, of course, and well, the engine says this is still winning for white. There is some material imbalance, but should be good. Otherwise, after knight takes e4, bishop takes e4 is another possibility where, I mean, there is a couple of things going on. Black still has a defense here, but has to be very precise. Queen e5 is the move, which is defending all the dark squares, and if f6, we have queen takes e4 check. You have to move rook df3, because otherwise you go to dark squares. Well, the bishop comes with checks. That's not going to be nice. So rook to f3, and black queen is back to defend from the checkmate. Queen takes, f takes e7 is given by the engine, and there is the key move d4 here with this pin on the light square diagonals, where yes, white is going to take one of these pawns on f8, but this one is pinned, so the engine gives this as 0-0, which is probably meaning this is draw. I mean, fascinating variations there, all starting from rook takes, knight takes e4, and there is still yet another possibility here. After bishop takes e4, it's very, I mean, as I said, queen e5 was the only chance here for black to survive, thanks to this complicated line in which we see the queens exchanged. The move d takes e4 in fact is winning for white, but thanks to some heavily complicated things. I mean, of course, this is all computer workout. This is insane for someone like me to analyze it out. Rook takes g3. There is e3 check. This is all black relies on always in these lines. With he only has a bishop pair for the queen in reality, but white's king is slightly awkward and weak, so this gives black certainly counter chances. King g1 is played. Now bishop c5. There is no still checkmate for white, and black is threatening e2 discovered check. And here it is white who has to be very precise, playing the move rook e1 to still win this position. And there is, well, the last trick, like rook d1, where king f1 should be played, because of course if you take, then e2 discovered check, we're promoting, and black is winning. Another very interesting variation, just some crazy tactics there. Well, I said white has to be careful here. The point is that after bishop takes c5, bishop to c5, you have to play, as I said, rook e1. If you try to be just checkmate black very brutally and very quickly, say okay, queen g7 is I mean, there is no way to stop the checkmate. Well, that's right, there is no way to stop the checkmate, but it is black checkmating here. e2 discovered check. Look at the power of this both bishop pair targeting this king side. King h2, and we under promote to a knight on f1. Isn't this fascinating? Checkmating white king. Yes, the checkmate was not possible to stop, was unstoppable, but it was a checkmate for black, not for white. So some fascinating lines there, really amazing. All this starting with moves like knight takes e4, but this did not happen during the game. All this was shown by the players, by the way, in the press conference later with Jan Gustafsson. So knight h5 was played, and now g6 was played here by Anand, the winning move. Once again, white has to be careful not to throw the advantage, as f6, bishop takes f6, black gives the piece back, and after pawn takes, queen g6 just in time to defend the position from checkmate. So g6 has to be played, still threatening checkmate. F takes, rook takes f1 with check, bishop takes, and well, there is the threat of checkmate, of course. So you have to give up the queen on g3 to stop it. Rook takes g3, d takes e4. Black is, objectively speaking, completely toasted, but Maxime Vachier-Lagrave still had some tricks and tried to hang on a little bit. White has to be a little bit precise with his kings, not to expose it too much, and then the material difference would tell the story. Bishop e2 was played, e3, discovered check with the bishop from b7, king g1, and after bishop c5, just king f1, once again avoiding tricks with rook d1 check and e2 discovered check, all that things, king f1, and black just resigned. It was only 29 moves, but what a fascinating game. Black has been deprived of any serious counterplay, and well, g7 checkmate, or rook h4, rook g4, h5, things like that, checkmating black king are kind of unstoppable, so there was very little left to do for black here. So there it goes, a really nice and amazing game by Vishy Anand, who is playing really well in this tournament, and on the other hand, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, well, he beat Aronian, but he's having really some tough months, really dropping lots of points and not really finding his ideal play. Thanks for watching.